So we're going to talk about the top 6 things that make a herniated disc worse. Now, most of the times people go and get an MRI and they get the scary result of I have a herniated disc, and they feel like they're going to have long-term problems and they're going to have surgery in order to get this fixed. And I'm here to tell you that is not true. Sadly, there's so much misinformation out there. And most of the time when people come into our office, we're finding out they're doing the wrong things. And that's what we're going to talk about today. In this video, we're going to share the top 6 things that people do wrong with a herniated disc. We're also going to talk a little bit about what a herniated disc is and why these things are wrong. And we're also going to have other videos. There's going to be other videos that are going to be in the description that are going to share a little bit more about other things that you can do to solve a herniated disc. But this video, we're going to be talking about the things that we see all the time that our clients do that are going to make a herniated disc worse. Even when we have had people that have had 8, 9, 10 millimeter bulges, herniated discs, they were able to solve their problem, and they also did these things to make their situation worse. So be sure to also watch the 6th video, because the sixth top tip that we're going to share with you are things that doctors do not talk about. They rarely talk about this thing. So make sure you get to that 6th tip at the end, and let's get started. So let's go into kind of what a herniated disc is. So if we look at it, we have these, our bones are here, our discs are in the middle here. We have our spinal cord in the center, and we have the nerves that kind of come off the edge of the spinal cord. So even when you get pain down the leg, it's not anything to really worry about. We usually can resolve that fairly quickly, or start noticing that we can make changes to that fairly quickly with some things that we do. But there's also things that you do that we're going to talk about that can make this worse. So when we think about it, what do we do throughout the day? We are always bending. We are sitting in a bent position. We're bending over to clean. We're always in that bent forward position, and we don't come out of it that often. And so if we think of the disc like a jelly donut, if we're always bending forward, you're going to see that eventually these rings that go around these discs that keep everything intact, eventually you damage those rings. And when you damage those rings, you can start getting a little bit of a bulge that comes out of it. And it's from bending forward. The back part of this disc, that back and side part of the disc right through here, is the weakest part of the disc. And this is typically where we find herniated discs. Now, there also can be herniated discs to the outside. They present very, very differently, but just know that can happen here. It also can happen in the front. Very rare, but we do see those cases. They present very differently, but 80% of the people out there have herniated discs in the back. And that's kind of what's going on there. Now, MRIs, we say that oh my gosh, they're so scary and they're going to tell us exactly what's going on. Not always the case. People can have herniated discs and have no pain whatsoever. And so when you go and do an MRI, as we get older, it's going to show more things. It's going to show degenerative issues, degenerative changes. It's going to show arthritis. It may show a herniated disc. It can show all these different things that's happening in our spine, but they could have just been there already, because as we get older, it's kind of like as we get older, we get wrinkles on our face. And when we get wrinkles on our face, it's just a part of aging. Well, the wrinkles on our bones are some of these things, like a herniated disc, degenerative changes, arthritis. Those are just like wrinkles on the bones and wrinkles within the structures. And so when we get an MRI, it shouldn't be the end all be it all. I would say if you can go and find someone that's really good, that understands the body, that's going to be a first line of defense, because the MRI is not going to really give you more information as to what we need to do in treatment. So let's go into the 6 things that we should not be doing. The first one that I see all the time. So let's go into why this happens. We have, when we have herniated discs, what happens is the muscles will protect around it. So they'll go in and they'll tighten up and kind of spasm behind it. And so we feel like we need to stretch those muscles. That, it's just, I need to stretch the muscles. My back is really tight. I need to stretch the muscles. When in reality, what are we doing when we're bending? If we have a herniated disc, we're just bending and putting pressure on the front and making that disc worse. So the first thing that I always see people doing is, I just need to stretch my back, and we're just going to bring my knees to my chest. And that's what I'm going to do. And I'm just going to stretch my back this direction. A lot of times that can make you worse. Same thing as another tip of what not to do. The second one is bending. So you want to limit the bending going forward, because if we're bending and we're holding something, that puts a lot of pressure to the back part of that disc, and that's where the disc has some issues. That's where it's damaged. So we want to limit the bending for the short term. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't bring our knees to our chest and stretch, long term, or that we shouldn't be bending to pick things up. But for the short term, we need to limit those activities. It's kind of like if I always am pulling my finger back and I hold it here for a long period of time and I keep on pulling my finger back, eventually the joints don't like being in these positions and it creates issues with inside the joint. And when we come out of it, we can't recover fast enough before us going back in it. So it doesn't mean that pulling my finger back is bad. It just means that we need to limit that motion so we can allow things to heal. And then we need to make sure that we're not always just bending forward, that we're doing bending backwards as well to offset all the patterns that we repetitively do throughout the day. So no bending, no bringing the knees to the chest. Another one that we see patients do all the time that they're given by other healthcare providers is, let's bring the knees and let's twist. And the same kind of concept is I'm just stretching the muscles that are along the side. Well, the muscles are just a symptom of something that is going on. So we're just treating a symptom. The muscle tightness is a symptom, which is why massage doesn't always work. The muscle is a symptom. We've got to fix the herniated disc because that's the pain that's creating the muscle tightness. So that's the number 3, is the twisting that you need to limit to doing until we can figure out what's going on. Other things that we hear all the time is core. We have got to do core work because that is what's going to help us. Because we've got to stabilize the spine. Well, the first phase is we've got to get the mobility. We've got to fix why the pain's happening to begin with. And if you do core work, a lot of that is bending forward and doing things like this, or even doing planks, because a lot of times we'll end up arching the back to really get those muscles to, or bend the back to really get these muscles to fire. And what are we doing? We're kind of putting ourselves in that bent position. Core work is great, but core work needs to happen after we fix the problem. Okay, what is tip number 4? Tip number 4 is we need to stop the prolonged sitting. We're sitting all the time throughout the day, and we're just sitting, and we're sitting in a slouch position. So if I'm sitting and I sit in this slouch position, that's not going to be good for my back. That's like pulling my finger back for day after day, for hours and hours and hours. The joint doesn't like this. So we need to make sure that we take frequent breaks, that we aren't sitting all day long. Otherwise, that will make our back worse. Okay, the last tip and the most important tip, and this is one that doctors will not tell you about, and that is surgery. A lot of times you go to the doctor and they want to do injections, they don't work, and they say, you have to have surgery. I'm here to tell you, we do 200% more surgeries in this country than any other country. 200% more back surgeries. And one back surgery often leads to a second and a third. We see it all the time in our office. And what's the problem with that? Is, you have the damaged area. They cut out the damaged area. But when they cut it out, you don't have the education as to what were you doing throughout the day. How can you combat that? What are the things that we need to be giving you to get you back to feeling good? And none of those ever happen. So you go back to the same habits that got you into the problems in the first place. And then eventually, a year down the road, the pain comes back. The doctor says, oh my gosh, we need to go in and do another surgery, and we need to do something that's a little bit more aggressive. We just did the conservative surgery by doing the laminectomy or the discectomy. The laminectomy basically opens up the space. They open up the space in the back with the bones. And the discectomy is they're just basically taking the piece of the disc that is damaged and taking that part out. But we can take the damage, we can heal the damage. Our body has an amazing ability to heal. We just have to understand the body and taking the pressure off those areas. It's kind of like stabbing your arm. If I'm always stabbing my arm, I'm gonna have issues with the scab. It's never gonna heal. Well, we're doing things throughout the day that's like stabbing our arm with our back. And if we do that, then it's just gonna come back again. And a surgeon's not gonna help that. So we've got to figure out what those things are. So those are the 6 tips that you should avoid doing. Now make sure you go to the description because there'll be a lot of other resources on things that you should be doing when you have a herniated disc. Again, my name is Stephanie. I'm with Empower Physical Therapy, and we help clients avoid surgery, injections, and medications while getting their life back. And if you like this, make sure you subscribe to our channel because we put out content all the time.